Hello everyone, welcome back. In this section, we're going to talk about tuples. So a tuple is a collection of data type in Python that is used to store multiple items in a single variable. They are useful for grouping related data type together, especially when data should remain constant. So now we are going to discuss the differences between tuples that we are going to discuss in this section with lists that we learned in the previous section. So tuples generally are immutable. It means that they cannot change after creation. They cannot be changed after creation, okay? But in lists, we saw that they are mutable. It means that we could add elements, we could remove elements, and generally we could modify the elements. This is not possible to be done in tuples. And when we want to define tuples, we use parentheses. However, when we wanted to define lists, we were using square brackets. In general, in terms of performance, tuples are faster because they are not changeable. They are immutable because of their immutability. However, lists are slower because they are mutable, because we can change them. Because of this option, they are slower. And typically, in terms of the memory usage, tuples are smaller in memory, while lists are more using memory size as compared to tuples. And tuples generally are used for fixed data or the constant values, while lists are used for dynamic data that changes frequently. So these are the main differences that we can mention between tuples and lists. In the next videos, we are going to learn how to declare and initialize tuples and how to do certain operations using tuples. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this video, we're going to learn how to create different types of tuples. So I'm typing down my first tuple called empty tuple, and then when I'm initializing it, I'm using parentheses as we discussed earlier in the previous video. And here I'm putting no element for this tuple. So it's a tuple that has no elements, or we can say an empty tuple. Then I am initializing another tuple with one element in it. So it's a single element tuple. And the name of this tuple, I name it single element tuple. It could be X, it could be Y, whatever we want. There is no difference. Then I'm having another tuple called mixed tuple. And it has three elements. One 3.14 and one string called hello. Please note that when we are putting the elements, for example, an integer or a float here, we don't need quotes. But when we are putting a string as one element, we must have quotes. This is something to be careful about, okay? So these are three tuples that we declared and initialized here. One empty tuple, and one single element tuple, and one tuple that has one integer, one float, and one string. Now we would like to print them. So I use the print function. In the first part, I type down the message that I want to be shown in the terminal, saying that, for example, empty tuple, and then one comma, and then type down the tuple name. The same logic goes for the second and the third tuple. Single element tuple in quotes because it's a message to be printed in the output, then a comma, then single element tuple is the name of my tuple that I'm putting there. Again, for the mixed tuple, I'm having the mixed tuple name, a comma, and in the first part, I'm having the message shown in the terminal. So when I run, I see that the message empty tuple that we have here is printed out in the output. And when I have the print of my tuple here, you see empty. So it's only parentheses because it's an empty tuple, okay? But here, when I have single element tuple, it is initialized to be 42. So here we see 42 in the output here. Then when I'm printing out the mixed tuple, I'm having 1, hello, and 3.14. So in this video, we learned how to create different types of tuples. In the next videos, we are going to dive deeper into this concept. Thank you for your watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn about the count and index functions in tuples. I'm having a tuple. It has these elements 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, and 2. Okay? And I would like to count the number of occurrence of number 2 in this tuple. To do that, I'm using the count function here. Okay? We can have the count function, and in parentheses I type down 2, the element that I want to count the occurrences of that. So I'm having a new variable called x, and it is equal to my tuple dot count, and in the parentheses I'm having number 2 because I want to count the occurrences of 2. So the result of this is going to be assigned to x. How many 2 do we have here in this tuple? 1, 2, and 3. So we expect to see 3 when we print out the value x, the value of x, and then I would like to find the index of the first occurrence of number 3 in my tuple. And in order to find that, we are using the index function. So index, and in the parentheses, we type down number 3 because we want to find the index of the first occurrence of number 3. And then this is assigned to variable y. So the result of this is assigned to y. And then we are printing out the variable x and variable y. So when I run this code, we see the count of 2 equals 3. So why? What happened? This function count is going to count the number of occurrences of number 2. So how many 2's we have here? 1, 2, 2, 2, and 3, 2 here. So, and it is assigned, this result is assigned to x. So when we are printing out x, we see number 3, which is true. And then we want to find the index of the first occurrence of number 3. So we use the index function, and in the parentheses, I have the number 3, and it says the index is 3. But how we get the index 3? So the first element index is 0. Then we start from there, and we see that the index of number 3 is indeed 3, as we see here, because we start from 0. The first element is 0, the second element is 1, the third element is 2, and the fourth element is 3, and our fourth element equals 3, and the index of 3 is 3. So 3 is assigned to y, and y is being printed out in the output. So in this video, we learned how to use the count and index functions for tuples. So basically, we have the name of the tuple dot count, and then in the parentheses, we type down the number that we want to count, the number of occurrences of it. And then we are having the name of the tuple dot index, and in the parentheses, we have one number, and that number is the number that we want to find the index of its first occurrence. This is how it works with tuples. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. We would like to do membership testing in tuples. We have a tuple called fruits. It has 3 elements: apple, banana, and cherry. And in the output, we are printing using print function to print the result for us. We want to check to see if apple exists in this tuple, and we want to check also to check and see if grape is not existing in this tuple. Okay, to do that, we need to use in and not in function. Here I'm having the print function. There are 2 parts in the print function. This is the first part, and this is the second part, and these 2 parts are separated by a comma. First, I'm showing this message. is apple in the tuple? And then in the second part, I'm typing down the apple string and I'm using the in keyword and then the fruits, which is the name of my tuple. So basically using this line, I'm telling to the compiler to check if this apple is a member of fruit tuple for me or not. So it is going to return the value either true or false. In this case, we expect to see the value true in the output. Why? Because apple is a member of this tuple called fruits. Okay. And secondly, I'm having this message being shown in the output first. Is grape not in the tuple? We are saying the grape is not in the tuple. Am I right? Yes, you are right. But when we want to type down not in the tuple, we are using not in keyword and then the name of the tuple. So we expect also to see the result to be true because indeed grape is not in this tuple for us. So when I run the code, we see is apple in the tuple, this message, and the answer is true because apple is indeed in the tuple. This is the first element. And then we are showing this message in the output, is grape not in the tuple? So we are using this syntax, grape not in fruits, the name of our tuple. And we see that grape is not one of the elements. And the answer is true. This statement is true. Grape is not in the tuple. So this is how we can use membership testing using in and not in keywords in Python. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this video, we're going to talk about packing and unpacking for tuples. So packing and unpacking are convenient features in Python that allow for grouping multiple values into a single entity called packing and breaking them apart into individual variables called unpacking. So let me illustrate it with an example. Here I'm having my tuple and it is assigned 10, 20, and 30. So we can say my packed tuple is this one, okay? So I'm printing out my tuple here and I'm saying in the message packed tuple. So when I run this code in the output, I see packed tuple is having 10, 20, and 30. So it allows me for grouping multiple values into one single entity. So this is why we're using tuples initially. So we call this action as to be packing, okay? We could also remove the parentheses if we want. So when I run this code, again, I'm having the same output. So it is called packing, but unpacking means the following. So this my tuple has three elements, 10, 20, and 30. Okay. The unpacking is like the following. Because it has three elements, I'm having three variables here called x, y, and z, and they are assigned to my tuple. So when I run this code and I'm printing out x, y, and z, I see that unpacked values are 10, 20, and 30. It means that the first element of the tuple is assigned to x, the second element of the tuple is assigned to y, and the third element of the tuple is assigned to z. This is called unpacking. And I could, for example, print only the value of x here. So when I run this code, you see the output 10. So x is assigned 10. So this is how we can unpack a tuple. We can break the tuple apart into individual variables, and these individual variables are x, y, and z. So let me just type down y and z here. So in the next video, I'm going to have a coding exercise to dive deeper into this concept. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. In the previous video, we learned how we do packing and unpacking. So packing is very similar to initializing a tuple. Therefore, in this video, we are going to focus on unpacking tuples. I'm having a tuple called person info. It has three elements, two strings and one integer. So the first element is Alice, the second element is 25, and the third element is engineer. Now to do the unpacking, I'm having three variables here being initialized and declared. I'm having name, age, and profession. They are equal to my tuple, person info, okay? And they are going to take the values of this tuple respectively. For example, this name is going to take the first element of my tuple because it is mentioned first. Age is mentioned secondly, so it is going to take the second element of the person info tuple, and profession is mentioned as the third in the list here, so it is going to take the third element of the person info tuple. Okay, then I'm printing out three things here. I'm having the name, the age, and the profession. And I'm using name here, age here, and profession here. So each one of them is taking one value from this tuple. When I run this code, in the output, first we see the messages. So name, age, and profession, name, age, and profession. Then we see instead of name, we are having Alice. Instead of the age, we are having 25. And instead of profession, we are having engineer. So this is how the unpacking works. We can break the elements of a tuple down into different variables, and we can use those variables separately. This is how unpacking works in tuples. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to learn about concatenation and repetition of tuples. Here I'm having tuple 1 and tuple 2. Tuple 1 includes 1, 2, 3, and tuple 2 includes 4, 5, and 6. Here, to do the concatenation, we are having the new tuple called x, and I'm having tuple 1 plus tuple 2. This way, I'm concatenating these two tuples together and I'm setting their value to tuple x, okay? And then I'm having the repetition here for tuple y. So the name of my tuple is y, and I'm using tuple 1 times 3. So tuple 1 is going to be repeated 3 times, and then it is going to be assigned to tuple y. Finally, I'm printing x as a concatenated tuple and as the repeated tuple for y. So when I run this code, I see the x tuple is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It has the elements of the first tuple and then the elements of the second tuple. So they are merged in one and single tuple called x. And then I'm having tuple y, which is called a repeated tuple in the message in the output here. And we see it has 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So basically it was having tuple 1 times 3, which is this tuple. So 1, 2, 3, the first repetition, 1, 2, 3, second repetition, and 1, 2, 3, the third repetition. So this is how we can do the merging and repetition for tuples. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this video, we're going to learn how to access different elements of a tuple and how to do slicing. So I'm having one tuple called my tuple, and it has the elements 10, 20, 30, 40, and 50. So it has 5 elements. And we know indexing starts from 0. So the first element has the index 0, second element has the index 1, third element has the index 2, fourth element has the index 3, and fifth element as the index 4. So now we would like to access the first element in this tuple. To do that, I'm using the print function, and in the parentheses I have two parts separated by a comma. In the first part, I'm typing down the message saying that first element, colon. Then I type down the name of my tuple, and in the square brackets, I type down the index of the element that I would like to be printed out. So now that I want to print out the first element, which is 10, I type down its corresponding index, which is 0, because we mentioned that indexing starts from 0. So when I type down 0, it is going to print 10 for me in the output. Then I would like to print out the last element in this tuple. I could either type down, for example, I could either copy this line and paste it here, and instead I type down index 4 to have this element, the last element, being printed. Let me correct it. Okay, so the last element being printed, or I could type down -1. I could also type down -1 to have access to this element. This one is -1, -2, then -3, etc. Okay, so this is how we can also access elements, start counting from the right to left using the minus. So I type down -1 also to access the last element, or I simply can type 4 here. So let me make it a bit closer to each other. Okay, so yes, and this is for this. Okay, now it's good. So let me run the code up until here. So let me comment the last line. So when I run the code, I see first element is 10, so 10 is being printed in the output using the index 0. Then the last element is 50 using index 4, or we could access the last element using -1, so the last element is 50 here again. We could also, for example, type down, for example, if I want to access this 40, I could either type down the index 3 or -2. So I type down -2 to access this 40 element. I would say element 40. Okay. So when I run this code, it shows the message element 40, and my tuple index -2 is printing the 40 here for us. Okay, but what if we want to print several elements of a tuple? So when I run this code, this part is called slicing. So we slice certain parts of the tuple to be printed out in the output. Okay, so here I'm saying that slice from index 1 to 3, 20, 30, and 40. Index 1 to 3 here. It means 20, 30, and 40. But how I'm doing that? So this is the message I'm showing, slice from index 1 to 3. So index 1 to 3 is this part. It means that it is going to print 20, 30, and 40 for us. Then I type down my tuple name. So the name of my tuple is my tuple. I type down its name. Then I use the square brackets as before. However, I have a colon in the middle. On the left side of the colon, I'm going to type down the starting point, the starting index, let's say, and on the right side of the colon, I'm typing down the ending index. So I'm typing down to start from 1 and end at 4. But we mentioned that we want slicing from index 1 to 3. Why am I typing down 4 here? The reason is that the starting point is inclusive and the ending point is exclusive. So it is going to include index 1 when I'm having this code here. So index 1 is being printed, index 2 is being printed, index 3 is being printed, but the ending point 4, which is this part, is not going to be printed because it is exclusive. So when we want to have slicing from index 1 to 3, we must write from 1 to 4. Okay, just add one number to the ending point because it's a rule that the ending point is exclusive. So in this video, we learned how to access elements of a tuple and how to do slicing for a tuple. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we would like to write a program that creates a tuple containing 3 favorite colors, for example, red, blue, and green, and print the first and last color from the tuple. Here I am creating a tuple called favorite underscore colors. Then it has 3 elements, red, blue, and green. And I would like to print the first element and the last element. In order to access the first element, we can type down the name of the tuple and then the index of the first element, which is 0. And then in order to access the last element in the tuple, we type down the name of the tuple and then we type down the index -1 to access the last element in a tuple. So when I run this code, I see the first color is red and the last color is green. So if I have, for example, another color, for example, yellow, and if I have another color, white, for example, so when I run the code one more time, you see the first element is red and the last element is white. So white is the last element, and using -1, I'm accessing the last element in this tuple. If I want to print yellow, what can we do? I can either use indexing from left or right. If I use indexing from left, the red is 0, blue index is 1, then green is 2, yellow is 3, and white is 4. And if we want to index from right, we can access to white using -1, access to yellow using -2, then access to green using -3, and access to blue using -4, and access to red using -5 here. So if I type down -2, for example, I can print the yellow in the output. And also, if I type down 3, I am going to have yellow still in the output. Either 3 or -2, we are going to access the yellow in element here in this tuple. So in this, let me modify it to -1. So in this lecture, we learned how to create a tuple and how to access the first element and last element. And we reviewed how to index a tuple from left, starting from 0, and how to index a tuple from right, starting from -1. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. We would like to write a program that creates a tuple with 5 numbers, then find and print how many items are in the tuple. Here I'm creating the tuple. It has 5 elements from 1 to 5. In order to count the length or the number of elements in this tuple, we can use the len function. So using the len function, I can know how many numbers or elements are inside this tuple. Using the len function, in the parentheses, I type down the name of my tuple. Then this is assigned to a variable called count, and count is being printed using the print function. So I'm showing the message the tuple contains, and then count, and then items. So when I run this code, it says the tuple contains 5 items. So this is how basically we can count the number of elements in a tuple. For example, if I have more elements, now I add more elements here and I rerun, it counts 7 numbers. And if I add, for example, 3 more elements,
you see that it can dynamically change the length and it can recalculate everything. So now it is saying that it has 5 elements or items, and this tuple is called number tuples, and we can change and modify the tuple in the first stage and add or remove anything in the line that we are creating and initializing the tuple. So when I add more elements to this tuple, we see that the length of the tuple has increased. And also, if I remove, for example, some elements and I rerun, we see that we are having only 3 elements. And as you see here, there are only 3 elements in the tuple indeed. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. We would like to write a program that creates a tuple of 5 city names, and then convert the tuple into a list, add a new city to the list, and then convert it back to tuple and print the final tuple. So we would like to first write a tuple, convert it to a list, add a new city to the list, and convert it back to tuple, and then print the final tuple. Why do we need to first convert a tuple to a list and then add a city? Why don't we directly add the city into the tuple? Because when we create a tuple, it's not possible to modify them. This is one of the features of the tuples. This is why when we want to add something to the tuple, it's not possible. So a trick would be here to convert the tuple to a list, then add a city to that list and create a new tuple and convert that list into a tuple and assign it to the new tuple. So here, for example, I'm having a tuple called cities. It has London, Paris, Tokyo, New York, and Sydney inside of it. And then this cities is being converted to lists using the list function. Basically, I type down the list keyword, and in the parentheses, I type down the name of my subtuple, and it is assigned to cities list. So cities list is the list version of cities tuple for now. Then I take the cities list and use the append function, to add Berlin to my list. So now my list is updated and it has a new city called Berlin. Okay. And now the appending is done. I need to convert it back to tuple and create a new tuple. To convert it to a tuple, we use the tuple function, and I'm using it here, and in the parentheses I type down the name of my list, the updated list, cities underscore list, which has Berlin inside of it as well. Then this is assigned to my variable, which is a tuple, which is called updated cities. Then I'm using the print function, updated tuples, and then put down the updated cities. So when I run this code, I see London, Paris, Tokyo, New York, and Sydney is already there, and Berlin is added, and it's a tuple because we see parentheses here. Okay, so let me review it one more time. So we want to declare a tuple. Then in order to add a new city to this tuple, because tuples do not allow this, we convert this tuple to a list, we append the new city in that list, and then we convert that list to a tuple. And we are going to print the final tuple for us. So this is my tuple. I'm converting it to a list using the list function. And now cities underscore list is exactly equal to this cities tuple because it's just converting from a tuple using the list function, and it is assigned to this. Okay. Then I use the name of my list, which is cities underscore list dot append. Using the append function, I add the new city, Berlin. So now my list is having a new city inside of it. And then I take this cities list in the parentheses and I use the tuple function to convert this updated cities list to a tuple, and it is assigned to a new tuple that is called updated cities. And then this updated cities is being printed in the output. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. We would like to write a program that creates a tuple of 6 numbers. Then ask the user to input a number and check if that number is in the tuple or not, and then print an appropriate message. Here is my tuple called numbers underscore tuple. It has 6 elements, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and 60. Then I'm trying to ask the user to enter a number. I do it using the input function, and then because by default it is a string, I'm using the int to convert the input of the user into an integer. Then it is assigned to user input variable here. Okay. Then I check to see if this user input is having one number that is inside this tuple or not. To do that, I type down if conditions, if user input variable in numbers underscore tuple. So the user input is the input of the user, and numbers tuple is the name of my tuple. So I would like to check if the element that is entered by the user is indeed one of the elements of this tuple or not. Is it inside that tuple or not? So if so, just show the message that the user input is in the tuple, else show the message that it's not in the tuple. So when I run the code, it says enter a number in this line. So I type down 15. It says 15 is not in the tuple. So here I'm entering 15. It want to check 15. Is it inside this tuple? No, it's not there. It's not going to execute this line. It is going to jump to the else, and it is going to print the user input variable, which is 15, and then show the message is not in the tuple, because indeed 15 is not one of the elements of the tuple. But if I type down 20, for example, it says 20 is in the tuple. So it is going to say 20 is inside the tuple, and it is going to iterate over all the elements of this tuple. Okay, 20 is one of the elements. Okay, so this condition is true, therefore it is going to enter this if condition, and it is going to execute this line, and this line basically prints the user input, which is 20 in this case, and show the message is in the tuple, which is here. Thank you for watching.
Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. In this video, we are going to learn how to iterate over a tuple in Python. I'm having my tuple and it has 4 elements: Python, Java, C++, and JavaScript. So there are 4 strings included in my tuple. Okay, so I'm going to show the message programming languages, and then I'm having my for loop. So for language, this is a variable. We could call it x, for example, here for the sake of simplicity. For any value of x that is inside the my tuple, this is the name of the tuple, print the value of x. So when I run this code, it is going to print all the elements of this tuple for me here. Of course, we could also use this syntax to have the print of the tuple in the output, but we were trying to learn how to iterate through a tuple using for loops. Here, when the first time, in the first iteration, x equals Python, in the second iteration, x equals Java, in the third iteration, x equals C++, and in the last iteration, x equals JavaScript. This is why when x equals Python in the first iteration, we are printing x, we see Python in the output. Then we see in the next iteration Java in the output, then C++, and then JavaScript. And this programming languages that is printed in the beginning is exactly this line that we were having it here. So this is basically how we can iterate through a tuple in Python. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we would like to compute the element-wise sum of 2 tuples. So these are my 2 tuples. The first tuple is having 3 elements, 1, 2, 3, and the second tuple is having 3 elements,
4, 5, 6. So when I run this code, I see the element-wise sum to be 5, 7, and 9. But how do we get there? So when we add the first element to the first element of this tuple, so the first element of the first tuple is added to the first element of the second tuple. We have 5. 1 plus 4 is 5. Then second element of the first tuple plus the second element of the second tuple, we are having number 7, and with the same logic, number 9 is computed. But how do we do it in Python? So here I'm calling a function to do that, because here I'm creating the tuples, then I'm calling the print function to print the output. So this is the message element wise sum. Then it is separated by a comma from the part that I'm calling this function with 2 arguments. So this is the name of the function element wise sum, and 2 arguments are being passed to this function. So this is the function. So when I call the function, the program, the compiler goes up here and start executing whatever that is inside this function. So this is the name of the function element wise sum. To declare it, I use the def keyword, and it has 2 arguments, tuple 1 and tuple 2. So these 2 tuples are being passed to this function as arguments. Then what is happening here is the following. So we would like to iterate over the first tuple and the second tuple, and one by one add the elements. Okay, so we need to iterate through both of the tuples, and the first iterating variable is going to take this number, and the second iterating variable is going to take this number, and then these 2 numbers need to be added to each other. To do that, I'm having a for loop. So 2 iterating variables, as you can see here, are created or declared here. And these 2 variables are going to iterate over tuple 1 and tuple 2 simultaneously using the zip function. So the zip function allow to have an iteration from these 2 iterating variables for these 2 tuples. Okay, so then when they are iterating over these 2 tuples, they are being added to each other as well. So for example, in the first iteration, a equals 1, b equals 4. Okay, and then a plus b equals 5 here. So this is the first element of the element wise sum. Okay, so a is iterating the tuple 1 and b is iterating tuple 2 using the zip function. We are iterating over 2 tuples simultaneously using 2 different iterating variables. Here we call them a and b, and then we add them to have the element wise sum. Okay, we add them. And finally, in this part of the parentheses, we are converting whatever that is inside or whatever that is done there to a tuple, because we want to create a tuple. Okay, so in the second iteration, a equals 2, b equals 5, then a plus b equals 7, and in the third iteration, a equals 3 and b equals 6. Therefore, a plus b equals 9. So this is how we can use the zip function to use 2 iterating variables to iterate over 2 tuples simultaneously, and then we have a plus b here to add the value of each of those iterating variables in each iteration to each other. Then I use the tuple function to convert whatever that is inside this parenthesis, whatever that is happening here. So we are creating these numbers 5, 7, 9 to convert this
to a tuple because we would like to have a tuple, because we were having two inputs as tuples and we would like to have a tuple as the output. So we use the tuple keyword, and this function is going to return this. And when we call the function here, this function do the calculation for us, this element wise sum function do the calculation for us and return the tuple as the output of this function. And when we call it, so it is going to return us the result. So the result is being printed in the output. So it says element wise sum, this message is being shown, and then the final tuple is shown here. Thank you for watching.